Matt Vickers, hello.
Hello.
How are you?
All good, all good.
Good. Last week, the president of the Durham Miners, who organised the largest annual trade union gathering, he said he would rather be dead in a ditch than invite Tory MPs to the Durham Miners Gala. You are a local Tory MP,
Yep.
and I wonder what your response is to those remarks.
I think largely, I talked about being dead in a ditch. He'd suggested that we should be speaking to the police if we plan on attending. I think it's pretty poor form, and I don't think he's speaking for the majority of people in County Durham, who obviously voted Conservative in the election. So I think for the Labour Party, for the miners to think that this is about, the gala organised to think that this is about party politics. It's not about party politics. Me and people like me represent those people. The community voted for us, the community are with us. Sometimes when people tell you not to go to something, my parents used to tell me not to do things. What tended to happen is that I did them. So he might be in for a surprise.
So you'll be attending?
There's a good chance.
OK. Because there's a significant number of people who voted Conservative in the broader area.
Yeah, huge number of people, the vast majority of people in that part. Well, there are now more Conservative MPs in County Durham than there are Labour. So yeah.
It's sort of an interesting remark then, isn't it, to suggest that you guys might not want to come, or that you perhaps might even be, there might be barriers to you coming if, more than 100,000 people voted Conservative.
I know there's a few Labour councillors in my patch go, I'm going to see if I can cadge your lift. I don't know, we'll see how that goes down. I don't know how successful I'll be on that front, but we'll give it a go.
Do you think, if you do attend, what do you think of that sort of, might call it a threat? Do you think you would need a police escort? Do you think you'd need to speak to the police or personal security?
I would hope not, but actually I think sometimes if we let people like that put people off doing things, then we let that nastiness and that darkness fester and create something. Actually, the best way to deal with some of these things is to face them down. So the other week, I had a supermarket pop-up. We've done it every weekend so far. We jump in a supermarket, pop up my banner, and here I am for people to come and say whatever they think. And the woman in the supermarket, who was amazing, might I add, the community relations woman, she was, oh yeah, we'll get you a table, we'll pop you up, brilliant, front of house sort of thing. And she was, I reckon you'll get some stick today, because they'd posted it on social media, and the rubbish that appeared on social media about X, Y and Z and how much heat rate they were going to give me and this, that and the other. And there's probably people who would think, maybe we shouldn't bother. Actually, those people were not in the supermarket. I don't think we got a single bit of sort of pushback or abuse or hassle. It's the keyboard warriors sat in the bedroom. I think in my constituency there's about 20 of them, and the stuff that comes out of their mouths, you would think they speak for the majority. The day before the election, if you were looking at social media, you would assume I was going to get thrashed, because these 20 people go into overdrive. They say some pretty ruthless things. The reality is the result spoke for itself. You've got to face these things down, otherwise you allow them to take over.
There's a point there, isn't there, about the gap between what's happening online and what's happening in reality, and how those people might feel comfortable to abuse you or say something nasty to you online, but you're there also in the supermarket and they could turn up and say those things to you in person.
Yeah. I mean, there's two differences between what's online and what happens in reality. These people who are speaking for a huge crowd, people would think when they look at social media, tend not to be speaking for a huge crowd. And B, the things that they say tend to bear little resemblance to the truth very often. Some of the things that have been attributed to me on social media, you sit there and think, well, where did that come from? But they do it. It's quite sad.
You did experience that nastiness did physically manifest itself, though, didn't it, a little bit for you during the election campaign?
Yeah, we got, to be fair, I mean, the majority of doors you knock on, people are very well, whether they're aligned to you politically or not, are very welcoming. They like the fact that you've took the time to engage, the fact that you're interested in the review. And more so now as an MP, the fact that I go to their doorstep, knock on the door and see what they've got to say. So generally, you're fairly welcome. There's the odd exception. I had the odd exception during the campaign. Things went from vocal to physical, but no, it wasn't too extreme. It was more the concern that you need to nip it in the butt on every occasion, because sometimes there's a little old lady knocking on the door for me, or some young student who's come out for the first time, and I wouldn't want them to get what I got on the door. So we reported to the police and went forward from there. In fact, one of my neighbouring MPs, Conservative MPs, had something through his window, I think it was in the last week. It was one or two idiots, and we can't let them put us off doing what we do.
Obviously, that physical manifestation of those points of view is not acceptable, right? But do you have any sympathy or understanding for the opposition that some of those local people have to the Conservative Party and its representatives?
It depends what they're arguing about at the time, to be honest. It depends on their perspective. Some of them are just out there. When you look at this online, these small crowd of trolls, and they will, whatever comes out of government and whatever comes out is wrong in their view, and they will find a way of arguing against it. If people have a reason, an opinion on a particular issue, I'd like to hear it. I'd like them to engage with me, whether that's whether they're very robust in the way that they do that. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to listen, here to solve problems. That's why I turn up at the supermarket. That's why I turn up at the doorstep.
But in the instance of the miners, their point of view, for a lot of them, and I don't want to generalise, but I appreciate that is what I'm doing, is that Margaret Thatcher broke the miners' unions and essentially broke those communities around there, and that's where a lot of the animosity comes from.
I think animosity about political figures in history is one thing, but I think actually each time, the politics of 2 years ago is very different to the politics of today, and I think therefore it is wrong to judge or make assumptions about people and fight against people because they happen to be blue or red. In fact, the best results we get are when people put that stuff aside and start having real discussions. I think it's wrong to, this person is Conservative and therefore I can never have it, and then conversely, this person's Labour, I can never. Actually, you've got to look a bit more at the current situation, look at the individuals, and by working together we do a lot better.
I think this touches broadly on a question that the whole country has been asking itself recently, I think, which is which political party represents the working class in this country now? Because for the longest time, the default answer for a lot of people, perhaps not from yourself, but for a lot of people, would have been the Labour Party. And yet now, it seems working class people are not voting for the Labour Party in the way that they used to. I wonder what your point of view is. Do you think the Conservative Party is the party of the working class?
I think we are. I think that So one of the things that I always look back at what the contrast is between the two parties, in one sense, it's a bit historical. Well, no, it's not. It's in recent history, is that the Conservative Party, you look at welfare, for instance. So on welfare, the Conservatives put forward the notion that a family in receipt of benefits should not get more than the average family in work. A lot of working people would think that was just a common sense thing. The Labour Party opposed that. I think it's about making sure people are better off working, backing them. Things like the personal tax allowance, things like the living wage. If people work hard and do the right thing, they're better off voting Conservative because that's what we're about.
I think the divide perhaps would come from the fact that a lot of the senior figures in the Tory party, privately educated, often Eton, one of the most prestigious, exclusive institutions in the country.
It'd be interesting. I've never seen the stats, actually, but when you look at the two parties and you look at how many people in Parliament are privately educated and went to these schools, I think you find a lot of the Labour Party from bench did the same. But we don't mention that. That's not a thing, is it? It's not a...
Why do you think they do? Why do you think they mention it then, and you guys perhaps don't?
I think it's because in my view, politics is not about division. It's not about dividing and putting people in buckets. I sit alongside people who were privately educated, and we contribute equally to debates from different perspectives. And I think to say that someone's opinion is more valid or less valid based on that is actually a really bad thing. I think we should be about the issues, the debates, and taking it forwards, whatever the background.
A question that's come up in recent weeks is around council funding, budgets, and the potential reallocation of some funds from the north towards Tory shires in the south, the home counties. I wonder what your message is to your working class voters about how they could potentially be losing out. I think Stockton South was looking like it might lose about £500,000.
I think they were talking about 1.2%. Those figures are not... It's a political point that's been blown out of all proportion. Actually, this is a discussion that we're not there yet. Those are not real figures. That is not what is being applied. That is a forecast that someone's pulled out of their... it's not the case. And actually, if you can find stats to back anything and you can find figures to back any sort of argument, the Teesside, my part of the world, we've got a devolved combined authority. We've got huge sums of money. A few weeks ago, huge investment in the South Tees Development Corporation. We've bought back the airport. There are so many streams of cash coming into my part of the world, and I think people are seeing the benefit. For these lefties to start quoting, 1.2% on this spreadsheet in this form that is not applicable yet and is a forecast and it's simply not the case.
Well, the local government association, which produced those figures, they did say that the specifics might not be quite there, but it's an indication of the general direction of travel. We don't need to get into debating about which statistic and all the rest of it, but I'd like to explore actually something you just said, which is that you feel like there's enough money in the local.
I wouldn't say there's enough money. I would say there is huge amounts of money coming to Teesside, and we are working to ensure that more money comes to Teesside. And we've got wish lists, and every week we've now got a small army of us from Teesside who are going in there and banging the drum to drag some of that cash back. So I've got on my wish list, I've got money for improvements to a train station. Actually, we're seeing improvements in train stations in my part of the world for the first time in a very long time. In my neighbouring constituency, there's a section of a dual carriageway, a pinch point in dual carriageway, that people just thought, we get stuck in this traffic every day, it's part of the drill. It's never going to change. It's changing, it's happening. Huge investment in infrastructure in the north, and we're going to get more of it because I'm going to be down here dragging it back.
So you're down here.
Yeah.
I wonder what has surprised you so far about your time in Parliament.
About Parliament specifically, or the South? The price of a pint down here.
Both.
The price of a pint down here is appalling. It's so much. But I think there's all sorts of aspects to it that were surprising. I mean, the thing about it is, it's a huge privilege to be down here. It's amazing to walk through those doors on day one and look at this building and sort of, wow. And then when you get sat on the bench and you're sat next to sort of some of the big beasts, and Theresa May was sat in front of me, this sort of, wow, we've really made it. And you keep thinking you're going to wake up and it's all going to be over, but it's not yet anyway. It's amazing. I think some of the bizarre things, which are also some of the good things, is sort of this very old-fashioned, traditional sort of stuff that goes on. I had my parents down last week. They came down and had a look around, huge buzz. They were surprised, and I was surprised at the time, but it sort of had started to sink into normality, was this voting situation. So on a Monday, they'd got there, they'd seen me around about, bits of stuff to do in the office, but during the day, you can go and sit in the chamber, you can go and meet ministers, which that's another positive. The fact that you get the access to ministers, I can stroll into there and have a conversation about an issue I've had a conversation with someone in the supermarket at the weekend about, and I can get the access to the decision maker, and that's amazing. But the whole voting thing and the tradition around the voting thing, if we go through the lobby, so we go in there, the debate goes on, the vote might not take place till 10:30. The bell will ring and it's time to run up the stairs, find your way at the chamber, and I think you've got 8 minutes to get there, walk through this lobby, which is just a bizarre thing in itself. You would assume tick, tick, push a button. No, we walk through the lobby. It's also a really quirky opportunity to tackle ministers because they're in the lobby having a vote too. Boris is having to get through there. We can stop him about what we need. But the fact that we'd sat around, we were around all day, and then at 10:30 we have to rush to this place to vote. 10:30 at night. It was. My parents were like, "You're joking." I was like, "No, this is the way it goes." Bizarre, but it's all part of the magic, isn't it?
Yeah. On voting, something that you voted against recently was the Dubs Amendment to the Withdrawal Agreement Bill, the Brexit Bill. For those not familiar, that's a provision to reunite unaccompanied children with their families that might be living in the UK, children refugees. I wonder why you voted against that amendment.
Well, so the reality is the UK, the government, is we're a leader on reunification of child refugees with their families. That's something that we lead on in Europe. This is completely unchanged by the fact of that amendment. We are still, the policy on child refugees is still exactly the same. And putting it into the withdrawal, it's not where it would go in legislation. We would put it in domestic legislation. The UK government is committed to maintaining that policy. There's no change from that vote. We're actually putting it in the right place, putting it in domestic legislation, tying ourselves in.
So your point here is that your party, the Conservative Party, and yourself, you support the reunification of child refugees, people who, let's be honest about it, they're very vulnerable, probably the most vulnerable people on the planet, maybe, lost parents, maybe, reunited with an aunt or an uncle or a family member in the UK. And you're just saying that in this instance, the legislation, it doesn't make sense.
Well, people were trying to make cheap political points and turn it into something to slow down the withdrawal agreement. Actually, there's no change in policy. The UK leads in Europe on this. I think we're the third best in terms of taking on our share of travel. We're the third best, and we'll continue to be the third best, if not better. But it'll be in domestic legislation where it belongs.
Just finally, a word on HS2.
Yeah.
You're an MP from the north. The high-speed rail line is all about linking London to the north. I wonder what your view on it is, because we're expecting a decision perhaps this week
Yeah.
about the cost, which has been spiralling about £100 billion. It's expected could be even higher. Are you in favour of it?
So the HS2 thing is quite interesting. I haven't come off the fence yet, in the sense that no, I haven't made an informed decision yet.
Right.
I think that when you look at lots of the infrastructure things that are going up on in our part of the world, improvements in I've got a big mission about a train station in my part of the world, Eaglescliff Station. We're going to make it disabled access friendly. We're going to improve. I've got missions about local infrastructure and local train services in the north. The real north. HS2.
There's not the real north.
At the same time, this HS2 project that is coming some way in my direction is not coming all the way at this point. But when you look at infrastructure, one of the big problems with government infrastructure spend is that it's huge sums of money, and the political capital that comes from it and the improvement tends not to be felt for a very, very long period of time. So it's very easy for governments to just kick the can on infrastructure projects. This government is committed to infrastructure improvements in my part of the world. They've taken on, they're looking at this huge project. I'll make an informed decision when I've seen all the facts and I've seen the spiralling costs, and I look at that in terms of what else I'm getting offered in my part of the world.
Matt Vickers, thank you.
Nice to meet you.